markets there. The Dow is down by more than 1,500 points, down by 5.69%. It's been bad all day. The TSX also way down by more than 500 points, 586 points as well. Trying to figure out, of course, what exactly is going on and what's happening. We've got Marvin Ryder standing by with the DeGroote School of Business at McMaster University in Hamilton. Marvin, dramatic day. What's behind all the volatility?
Well, I don't imagine the average person has been paying attention, but over the last 12 weeks, we've seen a tremendous recovery on both the Canadian and U.S. stock markets. In Canada, we recovered 75% of the lost value. In the United States, it's almost 85%. And in the last week, investors were beginning to think, well, maybe we've actually recovered a little too far, too fast. It's almost as if they were looking for a reason to doubt all that success, and they got it today. A couple of things happened. In the United States, we had a report on oil and gasoline reserves, and they had gone up. That caused oil prices to drop nearly 10%, down to about $35 a barrel. It was flirting with $40 a barrel. And then we had a report yesterday from the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. He just wasn't all that rosy about the rest of 2020. I think people were looking for a much more upbeat speech. Instead, he said he thought, for instance, American unemployment would remain high, probably 8-9% right until Christmas. So you put those two things together, the trigger around oil, the trigger from the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and today was a day people took their profits and ran. That's why it's down 5%. But remember, if it's up 85 and goes down 5, we've still recovered 80% from the lows of March.
Yeah, I like your optimism, and it is an opportunity for some to sell and get out where they think, they're ahead. What about fears of a second wave, too? How much of a factor do you think that is into the whole equation?
Well, really, that's the trillion-dollar question in Canada and the United States. We saw Prime Minister Trudeau say that that's why he's not come out with a budget for the current year or even going to do an economic statement, because how do I plan for a year if I don't know if there's going to be a second wave? I should note that second waves just don't come out of nowhere. They're not going to materialize out of nowhere. So in the case of New Zealand, which is COVID-free, Iceland, which is down to its last 3 cases, if you can get rid of the disease, then the only way for it to be reintroduced in a second wave would be if you let other people into the country and let them bring that disease. That certainly wouldn't be the plan. But this concern of the reopening, is it the right time? Is it too much, too fast? In Canada, I think we've taken a fairly small C conservative approach. But in the United States, especially with the Black Lives Matter protests, there's a little concern that a couple of weeks from now, we may see some numbers go in the wrong direction. So again, put all of that around. This was a good day for people to take their profits and run.
I'm also curious about some of these estimates coming out of, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, saying that Canada's going to get really hit this year, worse than some of the other countries out there, Marvin. And I believe it's around 8%, they're saying, for this year. That is, hopefully followed by a bounce back of about 4%. But when you look at those numbers here, what do you think that means in terms of the Canadian economy?
Right. Well, in terms of those numbers, they actually came out with 2 different forecasts. They said, here's what we think it's going to be if what you see is what you get, and then you start to recover, versus here's what we think it might look like if there was a second wave. And clearly that number is an even worse number in terms of its shrinkage of our economy. Why is Canada a little more at risk? Because we are so based on petroleum. Nearly half of the stocks on the Toronto Stock Exchange have some connection to petroleum. Where petroleum goes, so will our economy in many ways. And I understand there's lots of people who want to see us reduce our dependence on petroleum, but that's just the reality for this point. And so we've had this double whammy. We've had COVID, and then we've also seen the price wars in petroleum. But I would also tell you the OECD put a big asterisk beside what they said and said that's our best estimate, but there's still lots of error embedded in that because just nobody knows where this is going to go. So I still remain somewhat hopeful that maybe our pattern, because we have taken the strong actions, will look more like New Zealand than maybe what we've seen in the United States.
Fingers crossed, Marvin. Thank you for this.